In this episode, I'm going to show you the power of PeopleSoft integration tools, component interface, and file layout. I will start by introducing you to component interface, and then we are going to export the data from a multi-level PeopleSoft page to a file using file layout. I am also going to show you how to load data from third-party softwares into PeopleSoft system through component interface and file layout. I'm going to use XML format because it's a common language between different applications. These are the things I'm going to cover in this episode. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to Anshupriya and John for suggesting this topic to me. And also, I made a video on row traversing almost a month ago. I would encourage you to watch that video because you need to know row traversing if you want to process multi-level file data as we are doing here. In fact, I will be using the same component I used in that episode. I will provide the direct link in the description below. Now, let's get to work and understand what exactly is component interface. Let's start from basics. This is PeopleSoft component, and PeopleSoft component represents a complete business transaction. For example, if you want to create a purchase order, you have a separate component for it. If you want to create a voucher, you have a separate component for it. PeopleSoft component captures all the information related to that business transaction. For example, if you consider purchase order, it captures all the information related to purchase order, like purchase order date, when was the purchase order created, and what is the item, who is the supplier, amount, etc. It not only captures information, it also embeds business logic behind the scenes. When I say business logic, it can be a validation, it can be a calculation, or it can be an automation. Once all those business rules are enforced, the data is then inserted into PeopleSoft database. What if third-party applications like Java, C++ wants to gain access only to this particular piece of functionality? And this is when component interface will come into picture and act as an application programming interface, so that third-party application can leverage PeopleSoft for that particular piece of functionality. So long story short, component interface almost mimics a human entering into our PeopleSoft component, providing all the information and clicking on save button. At this point, let me stop talking and show you the component we are going to play with. This is the component we are going to play with, exactly the same component I used in my road traversing episode. Those who are seeing this for the first time, let me give you a quick overview about this component. The primary purpose of this component is to track the resident count for individual apartments as well as the total resident count for the entire apartment complex. As you can see here, one location can have multiple apartment complex, and each apartment complex can have multiple floors, and each floor can have multiple apartment units. And here we are tracking the resident count. In my road traversing video, we have written business logic behind this component to calculate the total apartment resident count by traversing all the way from level 0 to level 3. Let's assume for a minute, before migrating to PeopleSoft, all this information that you see was tracked in a legacy Java application. The only catch is the legacy application never captured the total apartment resident count. Because of that, we cannot directly insert the data from legacy system into PeopleSoft tables. In this particular scenario, component interface is the best fit because we can leverage the business logic behind this component through component interface and calculate the total apartment resident count instead of saving with blank data when we load data from legacy system. The next big question is, how do we load this data from legacy system into PeopleSoft system? Ideally speaking, once we create component interface in PeopleSoft, they can use their own Java language to invoke component interface, and component interface can insert data into PeopleSoft tables. But for this demonstration, let's assume legacy system exported all the data into XML file, and we will load that XML file by invoking component interface using people code instead of Java. Now it's time to grab XML file from legacy system. To be honest, I don't have any XML file. So why not we export this component data into an XML file using PeopleSoft file layout. And later we will make changes to that XML file to mimic the format of legacy system. Alright, let's do that. I will hop on to App Designer now. Let me quickly show you the page structure and the underlying records. Now I will create a file layout with the same structure as our component. Before I create file layout, I inserted all the records for each level on my project panel. To create file layout, click on New Definition and select File Definition. Following the same component structure, I will drag all the primary records into the file layout. Now I will save the file layout. After saving the file layout, I will click on File Properties icon and navigate to Use tab, and here I will change the file layout from fixed to XML. That's all needs to be done. Now our file layout is ready to export our component data. Let's write some code in the component level to export the data using our file layout. I want the file to be exported when a user clicks on the Save button. And the file export is something that falls out of component buffer, hence I picked this Save Post Change event. Nice thing about file layout is no need to write people code from scratch. All we need to do is drag the file layout into people code editor and it generates the core file layout logic for us. Let me show you. As you can see here, the auto code generated was mainly for importing XML data. So let me clean up all the unnecessary code that is not required since we are exporting the XML data. I almost deleted the entire code but just kept the part where we initialized the file layout. Let me update the export file location. Let's give some name to our file. If you saw my row traversing video, in that I explained if you got access to level 0, you gained access to all the levels of the page. We can get all the data that needs to be exported from all level records by just accessing level 0. Let's do that using people code. Once we grabbed the page data, let's insert the data into file using write Rowset. Oh, by the way, don't forget to change the file mode from read to write since we are exporting the data into a file. And now we will save the file layout. That's it. Now if you open the page and save it, it should export the data to a file. So let's go check it out. I opened our component, made some changes to the description to change the component buffer and clicked the save button. Remember, our logic will be fired when user clicks on save button. Now let's go check it out if file got generated or not. If I open the server location, as you can see, the XML file got generated. If I open the file, we can see all the component data for that particular transaction. I have downloaded the XML file to my local machine. Let me open the file. The reason I created this XML file because we need a sample file from our legacy Java application. Let's update this XML file to add some new data, and also remember we have to remove the total apartment resident count value because our legacy Java application doesn't have that capability. Let's consider for now that special business functionality is supported only by PeopleSoft application. Here is our new file after making the changes. As you can see, there are two different row sets. This is one row set and this is the second row set. And now we are using completely two different locations which doesn't exist in PeopleSoft system. And also here I updated the count to 0 because this calculation is not done in legacy application. Let's assume this is the finalized data file from our legacy Java application. You can definitely load this data directly into PeopleSoft tables using file layout. Just like we did file export, you can do the import. The only problem is the count value is updated as 0 in PeopleSoft tables. If we go through component interface, our component's business functionality will be invoked and total apartment resident count will also be updated. Let's go through component interface this time. The very first step is we need to expose our component's functionality. That is by creating component interface. Let's go ahead and create our component interface. To create component interface, I opened App Designer, select File, New, select Component Interface. Let me select the component. After selecting component, you will see this message, do you want to default the properties? What it is saying is, do you want to expose all the fields in the component through this component interface? I will say yes. You will see two window panes, one is for component and the other is for component interface. Just like the regular component, you can search data, add data using component interface. That's when these keys will come into picture. Just like component, these fields are derived from the search record. Get keys are the fields that are specified as search keys in search record. Find keys includes both search fields as well as alternate search fields. Create keys will be shown when you enable add mode for your component. The manual actions that you do on a component, like saving a component or searching a component, all this can be done programmatically using the methods shown here. These methods are absolutely configurable. In order to configure, click on component interface and select component interface properties. Navigate to standard methods. Here you can enable or disable. If you do not want your third-party application to save data into your component, you can disable it here. Likewise, you can do the same for other methods. Properties are nothing but the fields that you expose to third-party application. If you do not want to expose certain field, you can right-click and delete it. Likewise, you can do to any record field. Let's go ahead and save our component interface. Just like everything else, we need to provide unique name. By the way, you can create multiple component interfaces for the same component. Now it's time to write some code to import our XML file. I'm going to create an App Engine program to import our XML file. In App Designer, select File, New, App Engine program. I will insert an action. People code. Let me save the App Engine program. By the way, we will be using the same file layout we used a few minutes ago to export the data. I copied some of the logic we used in the save post change people code. I'm pasting it here. All this code is doing is initializing our file layout. We're going to run this program in two-tier mode. Let me copy the file location. Now let's go ahead and read one rowset at a time from the file. In order to do that, we need to write the logic file rowset, and we need to grab the file and read rowset. What exactly that line of code does is, this is our file. As you can see here, there are two rowsets in our file. This is one rowset and this is the second rowset. The method read rowset will pick the very first rowset and we are going to process this first rowset. Before we process each rowset, let's loop through all the rowsets in the file. And we are going to copy the same line of code here. This is where exactly we need to do all the processing. After the processing of first rowset is done, we will navigate to the next rowset until there are no rowsets to process. Now we are ready to process the data. So we are going to process the data with the help of component interface. Just like file layout, we can drag and drop the component interface into our people code editor and it will automatically generate the code for us. I'm going to shuffle around people code here. All the variable declaration I'm going to paste at one place, and I will move the function below the variable declaration. This is where our component interface is invoked. Just like how component has different modes like update, update display all, and correction mode, corresponding to that, component interface has different modes. Now let's understand how exactly component interface processing works. Just like I mentioned a while ago, the process is almost similar to a user accessing manually our PeopleSoft component and providing all the information. Let me show you what I meant. This is the component we are trying to insert data into through component interface. Let's do manually the same steps. When I click on add a new value, it is asking for location code. Just like that, our program is asking for location. This is where the component interface processing starts. Let's populate the location field value from our rowset. Just like our component, there is only one row for level 0 rowset. After providing the value for location, let's see what our user would do on our component, he would click on the add button. Corresponding logic to that in component interface is execute create. Get is primarily used to find an existing value. We need to invoke create method in component interface when we are inserting new data into component, just the way we are doing now. Let's uncomment the create and comment the get logic. Let's see what our user would do after clicking add button. He would fill the level 1, level 2 and level 3 information. Likewise, we need to populate level 1, level 2 and level 3 information. Let's understand the difference between terminologies of component and component interface. For example, we call data entry elements as fields in PeopleSoft, but they are called as properties in component interface. Because remember, component interface is primarily for external applications. Maybe that could be the reason they are using different naming convention. And next, we refer different levels of a page as scrolls, but the same thing is referred as collections in component interface. And lastly, just like how we have rows within Rowset, we have items under collections. Since now you are familiar with naming convention of component interface, that is the reason it is referred as collection for our level 1 Rowset. Look, here they are referring each element inside collection as item. Let me switch back to our component manual entry. When we are adding new data, are there any rows in each level of our Rowset? No, right? Everything is blank. Then, without data, what are they looping here? Remember, this is the default code that was generated when we dragged component interface into PeopleCode editor. We need to tweak it according to our needs. The default logic mimics the component search functionality. Since we are adding new data to our component, let's loop through the file data instead of component buffer. Next, by looping through the data in our file layout, we need to populate all the fields in that level, almost similar to entering manually all the details in our component. Same thing should be done for all the levels. Here is the logic I have written ahead of time. Since our component and file has the same Rowset structure, all I am doing is just mapping them. Let me show you what I mean. First, I am accessing the level 1 of our component using the syntax component interface dot primary record name of that level. I am navigating to the same level 1 using row traversing logic and populating our level 1 record fields from our file data. Let me explain this logic. When we are accessing the first row of Rowset for any page level, there is a dummy row. Let me show you what I mean. First time when we access each level, there is a dummy row as you can see here, and we are accessing that dummy row directly. For the second row onwards, we need to insert item, almost similar to clicking on add button on a scroll level or grid. That's about it. I'm doing the same dance for level 2 and level 3. Oh, by the way, I'm not going to populate the total apartment resident count from the file because this count will be automatically updated behind the scenes when PeopleCode gets executed. Did I tell you most of the PeopleCode events that gets fired for component will automatically fire for component interface? Now let's move on to the last step. What a regular user would do after entering all the information in the component. He would click on the save button. Let's apply the same principle in our component interface logic. By default, save logic is commented. Let's uncomment it. I did that job. Let me go ahead and save the process. It's time to test our program. We are going to run this program in 2-tier mode. The process ran successfully. Let's see if our data got uploaded or not. These are the 2 new locations we uploaded through component interface. If I click on Bangkok, let's see if our total resident count got updated. Awesome. As you can see here, the total resident count got updated. This data doesn't exist in XML file. It was populated through PeopleSoft business logic. Likewise for the Hawaii, the data got successfully updated. So we have successfully implemented component interface and file layout. That's pretty much about it for today, guys. For more interesting content, don't forget to visit my channel. I look forward for your feedback. Based on it, I refine myself and try to come up with the content that adds value to your skill set. Through this video, if you learn at least 1 or 2 new points, I feel all my effort is well worth it. Hit that subscribe button if you want to follow my videos. Let's stay in touch. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, signing off, Siva Koya, your PeopleSoft partner.